On this episode of The Apple Watchers, Siri could be listening to your most intimate conversations. Walkie Talkie is back on the Apple Watch. Apple may fund its own podcast. Apple buys Intel's modem business. Apple's AirDrop and Wi-Fi password sharing features can potentially expose critical ID data. All this, our picks, and much more. This is episode number 6. Welcome to the Apple Watchers, a podcast about the Apple Watch and more. This episode and every episode is brought to you by me and Jay-Z, aka Jonathan Zarko. All right, let's get started. Hello, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. You made a wise decision by not riding over here.
Yeah, today. It was a little hot again, and I was tired from yesterday.
Yeah.
Went to the park.
It is incredibly hot here in Los Angeles.
The heat wave is breaking, which is nice because the air conditioner in our unit was not working really well.
Oh boy.
It's like if it goes past 90, it's bad news bears.
Fun times. I just want to mention to everyone too, sorry we didn't have an episode last week. That would have been the normal schedule every 2 weeks. But once in a while things come up and we'll let you know when they do, just so you're not wondering, did these guys just disappear?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I saw you put out that a little note to everybody. Sorry, no episode. So this one will be titled, Sorry, there's an episode.
That's right. Well, since we missed a lot over 3 weeks now, let's get started with some Apple Watch stories. So this one, was actually, several weeks ago, but I still wanted to cover it because it brought up something that I didn't even realize. So let me start with the story. This comes from 9 to 5 Mac. A man named Philip Esho said he was riding his jet ski from the 31st Street Harbor to McCormick Place to take pictures of the Chicago skyline when a big wave flipped over his jet ski and knocked him and his phone into the water.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, he's basically was kind of stuck out there. And what are you going to do when your phone is at the bottom of a river?
Right.
So, this made me realize something. Well, let me explain. So he has the cellular watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have the cellular hooked up, as in he doesn't have a carrier tied to it.
He's not paying for a plan for the phone.
He's not paying a monthly plan
or for his watch.
Exactly. So, but Apple has apparently enabled this. It's the same as on phones. So if you don't have a cellular connection, you're still able to make 911 calls or emergency calls to emergency services. So like I said, I didn't really realize this, and I didn't know it was enabled on the Apple Watch. So that's why I wanted to put this story in there.
So the Apple Watch is considered a mobile device. Mm-hmm. And so even if you don't have a data plan on it, it still has to be able to connect to emergency services.
Yeah. So that's how he was able to make that call to emergency services.
Oh, so because his phone went to the bottom of the lake, he didn't have a connection to do it anymore. But the watch did because he was still there.
Yeah.
So he was able to call.
Yeah.
That's crazy smart.
Yeah. So I know that we had mentioned it, texting back and forth. I told you I'm not going to get a cellular version because I'm never going to leave without my phone.
Yeah,
but this is different.
Yeah,
and it completely changed my mind about my next Apple Watch purchase. That it will for sure have the cellular. I'll get the cellular version, maybe not hook it up. I would like to treat myself sometime to the stainless steel version, which only comes with GPS and cellular.
Yep.
So I don't know. And I don't know if it'll be the next Apple Watch or not, but it definitely changed my mind because I could see I mean, you could just be somewhere where you drop your phone, off a cliff or something, and then you're stranded on the side of, to be rescued. And
yeah, that's a really good point too, because the other thing I didn't think about is if you get in an accident, your phone could be broken to the point where it doesn't work.
Exactly.
And this will still make sure you're covered.
It could, fly out the front windshield or,
or be
whatever.
Crushed by a car if you're, walking through the crosswalk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might be sold on this too. Not necessarily buying a plan for it, although
no.
the deals that the cellular providers are offering now is pretty good. It's like $5 more a month to be able to have it on there. But again, if there's not like a real reason to have it aside from the emergency services, and you get that anyways, why not just spend?
Yeah, I think it's
a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's like $50 extra.
Get the capability.
I'm definitely doing it next time for sure. So I'd advise anyone. I mean, I really think it's worth it no matter what you do, but especially if you're the adventurous type,
Yeah, if the emergency services is a big deal, then or a big part of the reason why you're buying it, then it's definitely worth it. And it's good to point out too that even if your phone doesn't, let's say you're somewhere and you don't have a cellular coverage, so like we have T-Mobile, they're great when you're in large metropolitan areas.
Yeah,
they're not so great on the road to Vegas. It's fine. I'm not driving to Vegas that often. But one thing I will notice is even when you get into areas where there is no connection, it will say emergency services only because there's some other band that's out there, some other provider, and your devices will pick it up. So even if you're somewhere that you're paying for the service, if you're somewhere else, it'll still connect to emergency services as well.
Yeah. So it's worth it. It's worth that extra money. I'm doing it next time for sure.
I think it's smart. And now the Walkie Talkie functionality is back on your watch. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. We got this article from The Verge a couple months ago, just as a reminder that the Walkie Talkie functionality had been disabled due to a vulnerability that Apple found. They don't think that it had been exploited by anybody, but they just put in a patch, but it basically allowed people to listen in with an iPhone on other people's conversation by somehow activating it. So that's been like quickly fixed. So you can go back to using the Walkie Talkie or not, like a lot of other people are. But so long as you update to the 12.4 OS update, it should put everything back in there for you.
Cool.
But yeah. Oh, the other thing. So in 2020, Apple is looking to change the watch screen from OLED to microLED. And so that's really exciting because unlike an OLED display, the microLED screen doesn't rely on organic compounds to make light. So they should offer perfect black, excellent color, near perfect off-angle viewing, and then be brighter and slimmer and immune to burn-in, which I haven't really had any issues with right now. Most of the display stuff is pretty black anyway, so I don't think there's a lot of burn-in that's happening. But it also means it'll offer better battery life, which is cool.
Yeah.
And in the long run is less expensive. So maybe Apple will either reduce the price of the product or start to include more items into the watch because they have the cost savings, but keep the price point the same.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to do it on the next watch, and hopefully, we could always use better battery life.
I'm excited at the prospect of it being thinner.
Oh, yeah.
I know we've talked about this before, that thinner isn't always better, although on a wearable, I feel like that is a really good thing.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I think it's a little thinner than my original, but
there's definitely
just enough.
There's definitely a ratio too. So I feel like the thickness to the display size, if you have a larger display, you can get away with the thing that's a little bit thicker because overall it feels thinner. But if you could just start reducing it down a little bit more, I think we're going to be really good. I know there's some people who have, smaller wrists or just don't want something that large and clunky.
Yeah.
And so they'll start to broaden their market even more.
Yeah. That would be cool. This next story, Apple Watch could be listening to your most intimate conversations.
No.
And that's not just for the watch either. That would be your phone as well, Siri. So
This is a separate thing than the Walkie Talkie exploit.
yes. So it was revealed by The Guardian that contractors employed by Apple have been encountering recordings made unwittingly by Apple product owners via Siri. So they've been listening to all kinds of things. There's been countless instances of recordings featuring private discussions between doctors and patients, business deals, seemingly criminal dealings, sexual encounters, and so on. So, and then I popped in here a related story because as of Friday, Apple says that it will stop listening to these conversations.
Well, it says contractors will stop listening.
Contractors will stop listening. So maybe Apple will still listen in. But, it's a tough subject because they're doing this to make the service better because they do it. Amazon does it for Alexa, for sure. We've heard stories about that. And I'm sure Google is doing it as well. It's a slippery slope. Because it is to make our services better.
Yeah. I think this actually sounds scarier than it really is. Yeah. What I think is happening is, so with the Apple Watch, when you raise your wrist, Siri starts listening for the prompt. And then when you give it the prompt, it's supposed to take that in, figure out what you're trying to ask for, then return the answer. Occasionally, if you lift your wrist, it's listening for the prompt. It doesn't take the prompt in. But it doesn't also know that it didn't quite get the prompt, so it just sends that over for verification, and that's what they're listening to. And so for every time that I've raised my wrist and it's Siri started listening and thought I was saying something to it, there's also a time that I've raised my wrist and actually tried to talk to Siri, and for whatever reason I didn't catch it at the right time and it didn't quite do it. Yeah. So I think it's more the issue that there was like a contracting company that was listening to these things to kind of help decipher the information and try to make it better so they can start building, better algorithms to listen for better key phrases or sparse out background noise from the actual prompt that's being given. But that started also making people feel kind of weird. It's like, it's one thing if Apple is listening to my stuff. It's another thing if Apple is getting a subcontractor to listen to the stuff. So
because there's those that say they would rather have Apple listen than just some contractor, and I guess I would trust Apple.
I 100% feel that way. Like it's for whatever reason, it makes me feel better knowing that it's an Apple employee.
Yeah,
I feel like there's more skin in the game, so to speak, for the company versus some other independent contractor.
Yeah. Well, it looks like they're going to stop doing this. So, will Siri ever be great?
I think so. I think eventually, ideally, Apple would like to not be listening to people, then not have to pay for somebody to listen to it. So eventually, the artificial intelligence is going to be able to understand it better, and then nobody except for the computer is going to be listening, and it'll just be able to sparse out commands from there, or marketing material. Which, let's be honest, it's all going there.
Yeah. So. Moving on, this next story, and I think every episode we're going to have stories of the Apple Watch saving someone's life or helping them, when they've fallen.
It's a magical device.
It is. So Apple Watch Emergency SOS credited with saving epileptic Australian woman. So an Australian woman with epilepsy is reportedly alive because of the fall detection on her emergency SOS feature on her Apple Watch Series 4. Says Sydney resident Kate Donald was home alone when the seizure happened 2 months ago, according to news.com Australia. A fall triggered emergency SOS, which fired off text messages to her husband, Ben. Ben in turn called a neighbor who turned out to be away from home, but was able to reach two other people who were close by and knew the PIN code to get into her house. So those people called an ambulance only to learn that one was already on its way.
See, this is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
telephone game that happened because of the SOS.
Yeah.
Where like 4 people are engaged.
Yeah.
And by the time they're able to start trying to get, which in itself is a cool thing, right? Like, oh, somebody is hurt. They need help. But by the time they've already called for help, the watch already did it too.
Yeah. 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 It's awesome.
And then it also says Ben was able to get GPS updates on his wife's location.
Yes.
Which is good too.
Yeah.
Like, where is she being taken?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. These stories really never get old.
No.
You know?
And it's really fun to hear how the whole process is kind of happening with other people. And you know, because I think everyone's had little medical scares here and there with people they love. But to know that this little thing, you know, is making, not only does it make your daily life better, but when things like this happen, I don't know, it makes me feel better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's hard to live without it now.
Yeah.
You know, I follow a lot of, you know, watch blogs and stuff on Instagram, and I love the way classic watches look still, but I just can't, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
I'm hoping that, and we've talked about this at length before, that eventually they're going to open up a face store that allows people to make and do really cool, you know, classic designs.
Yeah, I'm ready for the faces that are coming out too on watchOS 6.
Oh yeah,
the California.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. That'll work for me for a while. So this next story, I put this in here because yes, I'm experiencing this problem. So the latest iOS 13 beta may be draining the Apple Watch battery. So, and yes, it is true. And you said you are on iOS 13 public beta 4 now, right?
Correct.
You just got it. Hopefully this does not happen to you. Hopefully it's only the silver aluminum
Apple
Series
Watch
4 models, because it kind of sucks.
I don't know why that would make a difference. I'm assuming
Yeah.
I'm going to have it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and I thought it was my imagination, and then I saw stories pop up in news that I follow, and then I looked for more stories and found, you know, more people with the same issue. So, yeah.
For you, it's harder because you wear yours to sleep.
Yes.
To track sleep stuff.
Yeah. My whole routine is to charge the watch in the morning while I'm taking a shower and whatnot. Use it all day. I do, you know, track some activities, which will drain the battery more. Then I wear it to sleep and do the whole thing over again. But usually in the morning, when I go to charge my watch, when I'm going to take a shower and all that, the watch is still at like 30%, sometimes 40%, depending on activity that I've tracked. Yeah, now
Does it normally get to about 100 in the morning while you have it charging?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and I've mentioned this on a previous episode. I still feel like when the battery's, you know, at like 30%, 40%, it charges faster.
Oh yeah, then if you were like at 10.
Yeah, if I'm at, well, if you have more of a charge, it charges slow.
Oh,
I
interesting.
really feel that it's like that. I don't know.
I think there is something with certain batteries where they can get like a rapid charge for the first almost like 80%. And then it's that last 20% that takes a little bit extra time.
It's almost like they still know you're going to need the watch soon.
Yeah.
You know, in a half hour, an hour. Like, I still need it. So, okay, we better charge this fast, even though his batteries drain more. So, but yeah, now my routine is to be at about 30% at the end of the day. When I'm ready to go to sleep, then I slap it on the charger, get it to 50%, and then it's down to 10% in the morning. And has that alert, you know, and so the alert to go into low power mode or whatever.
I'll have to watch because I take mine off at night and it's on the dock. But typically I'm about 50%. So if I'm showing way less than 50%, then that'll be an indication that I am experiencing a battery drain.
Yeah, I feel like I should have told you, you know, like yesterday, like be careful. And I just kind of got busy and
No, that's cool. I still would have done it. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure they'll probably fix it soon. So I don't know if any of you out there are running the public beta on your phone and experiencing this, but we don't have an email to write to us, but hit us up on Twitter at Watchers Tweet. Let us know if you're experiencing this at all, and hopefully it'll be fixed soon. All right, well, now let's go over some Apple stories. This one, Apple may fund original podcast exclusive on its own services. So this is kind of neat, but this could be a slippery slope too. The thing I don't want to see is a paid,
a paid subscription.
Yeah, because now the name is leaving me, but there's a podcast service where you pay for subscription and you get exclusive content, and also Stitcher does that too. I'm not a fan of that.
I could see it as part of Apple Music, where you're paying for the Apple Music subscription and you get premium podcasts or something.
Yeah, and we've discussed this before. If they had some kind of bundle, it might be cool. But the podcast content would have to be so amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever listened to the Serial podcast. It was really good.
Yeah, I have.
If it was on that level,
then it might make it.
But still, I don't know. I like personally free and with ads better.
But I think they're just trying to find ways to add value to the things that they are going to try to premiumly add.
Yeah.
So with the whole subscription model too, it's the exclusive content that is making things. That's going to be the differentiator, right? That's HBO showed that was enough to have premium differentiated content. Was wild success for them. And to the point where even before they had HBO Now, right, that people were like, just give me the option to buy your thing without having to get cable.
Yeah.
And so they finally did that. Disney's doing it too now with Disney Plus. They're going to pull all of their content off of some of the other streaming platforms and just have it on there. But they're also creating their own specialty content that'll only live there and has never lived anywhere else. I think, is it NBC was also trying to do one, or Universal? And so there's a couple other things that they're trying to. There are other companies that are kind of doing this, so it makes sense that Apple may be looking at this in the podcast area and trying to see like, okay, where can we add premium content everywhere?
Yeah, they're under a lot of competition too, because Spotify just acquired the major podcast creator Gimlet, which I actually listen to a lot of their podcasts, by the way. And yeah, I mean, Spotify took a lot of steps into podcasting and make it more on the forefront, not just their music.
Yep. So this is probably a direct reaction to that, or Spotify heard about Apple possibly doing this and did the reaction as well.
Yeah, and it could be, I mean, when they have their TV shows out, maybe there'll be some really good TV shows, right, that you want to hear podcasts about. That would be cool too.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they're spending a lot of money on their TV. So,
well, it's like AMC has Walking Dead, and then there was the
Talking Dead,
right? So if it was,
if it's just something like that, and they don't charge for it, that's cool.
Charge for it outside of having the Apple TV subscription or something. You mean?
Well,
or the Apple Music?
I just hope they don't try to charge for a lot of the content unless there's some amazing bundle for everything.
Yeah.
But, if they're going to try to charge, another $10 a month for podcasts, yeah, I don't know about that.
Or maybe it's, it could be also news related as well.
That would be cool.
Where, before you used to get your news on television, and now I think a lot of people are getting it through podcasts and through radio and stuff like that, as well as just the internet in general. Spotify actually did start, they created a thing called Your Daily Commute, and it basically recreates what you used to have in drive time radio. So it's your curated music that you like, but then they also intersperse in like NPR.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like 5-minute little blips on news and things like that. So I could see something similar where, with Apple, you have your playlist and then they go like, also we have premium news. So you're going to get, I don't know, the New York Times or something, a couple articles read to you or something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool. And they could definitely use their own podcast about Apple products, like the Apple Watch. And I don't know if you know of any podcasts out there that cover the Apple Watch and Apple type subjects, but
yeah, I'm sure there's one out there where people are watching things about Apple. With some very charming hosts.
We're easy to contact. You know where to reach us.
Yes.
And I'm sure Tim Cook and the whole gang just sit around and listen to this.
Yeah, shout out, guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate the listen.
Hey, fellas.
So we do have another article here. Apple's buying Intel modem business for $1 billion. And so this is kind of exciting because they're literally going to Intel and just acquiring over 17,000 wireless technology patents, as well as their portfolio that spans, cellular standards, modem architecture, modem operation, chip engineering, all this other stuff. But they're also getting the team that developed this.
Oh, okay.
And so what's really exciting about this is it means that they have been trying to build their own modems, which is the thing that connects to the internet for mobile devices, and really trying to get into the 5G market for that, because they don't want to have to be reliant on Qualcomm to supply those items. So in this purchase, they're essentially buying a team to start building these. Now, I've read from this article and a couple other ones that Qualcomm has signed an agreement with them, and so most likely the next iteration of phones will be using the Qualcomm 5Gs, but modems. But later on, so post 2020, we may start seeing Apple created ones. And what's exciting about that is it's kind of what they've been doing with their other chipsets. When they create these modem pieces, they can also create benefits for the rest of the device, right? So they can optimize their chipset for the way that they're going to be receiving the data and doing everything else. So they're able to find efficiencies. That's the word I was looking for. Efficiencies in the communications between the device. So maybe the battery life will be better. Maybe the connection strength will be stronger. Maybe there's higher security that they're going to be able to put into it. So I think it's really, really exciting. And then there's another article I found that kind of relates to this from iClarified.com, but Apple to introduce a MacBook with a 5G modem potentially in 2020. So similar to like a Chromebook, right, where you have a laptop that can connect to the internet just while you're out and about, or an iPad or an Apple Watch or a mobile device. So I see them kind of taking that technology and pushing it forward. Now in this deal, though, Intel is still able to create 5G modems for non-smartphone related things. So Apple just bought the smartphone related piece, but it shouldn't be very hard to take that technology and convert it into something stronger that can be used for other devices.
Right. Yeah, and I just want to point out too that they were in litigation with Intel for a while there.
That's true.
It's amazing how this all unfolded into something completely different.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you can either spend $1 billion suing somebody, or you can just spend $1 billion and acquire them.
Yeah.
Either way, the problem is solved.
Yeah, so, this would work out a lot better.
I agree. Yeah, I think this is going to be better for them.
Oh man. So this week too, we got Apple's had their third quarter sales report.
Mm-hmm.
This tends to be not big with the iPhone, the third quarter, because we're getting ready for the next iPhone.
Yeah.
And the Apple Watch as well.
Yeah, I think this is fairly on trend for them.
Yeah.
Q3 sales start to go down.
Revenue between $61 billion and $64 billion. Gross margin 37.5% and 38.5%. Operating expenses $8.7 billion. I don't know if we need to go through all these. And I've read from other sources that iPhone sales are down and I believe Apple is aware of that and taking the necessary steps. And their wearables are up like 50% from what I heard, right around 50%. And that would be the Apple Watch and the AirPods as well.
It makes sense. I mean, the price point on the devices are getting higher. So people are holding on to them a little bit longer. Also, they're higher because they have a lot more technology in them. They don't need to be refreshed as often. So there is a little bit of that going on.
Yeah. Says their revenue, it fell 12% on the iPhone.
I wonder, though, if that is from softer sales or because they also offered like the 10R, right, which was at a lower price point.
Yeah.
And so overall sales may be going down. But again, you have to look at it as an overall pie.
Yeah.
Would you rather have somebody buy a $1,000 iPhone or have somebody buy a $800 iPhone and a $350 watch?
Yeah.
Overall, you're getting higher sales, but you may notice in one area sales drop, but in the other area sales rise. So,
yeah, and not everyone is updating their phone or purchasing a new phone every year. I think you've been doing that. I just started on one of those plans, so I may do that this year again because I got to have the camera that's the best.
Yeah.
My fiance too, she has the 10R, but isn't completely happy with the camera when she sees mine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so she's actually going to downsize to a smaller phone. The one that's the same as the large phone,
right?
Has all the same features.
Yeah. She wants a 10S, just normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever, it'll be 11S.
Yeah.
She'll probably get that, but I think she's kind of done with the larger phones. But I don't think everyone's upgrading every year. Yeah. It's a lot of money. We were discussing the phones are $1,000, and
that's
companies are starting to notice that people kind of don't like to do that.
Yeah, it's enough of a price point that people are like, do I really need it? It's less of a easier sell, so to speak. And even like the plan that I have that lets me upgrade my phone was the T-Mobile Jump on Demand. They don't offer that anymore because
they don't?
I don't think it was as profitable for them as they expected. Okay. And so like when the 10S came out, I still have to pay a down payment. So I put down $300 and then I'm paying $50 a month. And so at the end of it, I'm out $900 for a $1,000 phone. By the time I then go and try to replace it for another one. So it's actually not really cheaper from that regard. Like if I wanted to, the smart thing to do would be to buy the phone outright and then sell it later on. And even if I bought the phone for $1,000, sold it for $400, then took that $400 and bought another one, just paid the $600 difference and kind of rolled it in that way. Overall, I'd be saving. But there's also a huge hassle in having to sell it and doing the whole thing and dropping $1,000 to begin with on the first time. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I think for some people that use Apple products too, like if you have an Apple Watch, the capabilities of this little device it's so much more than it used to be.
Oh yeah.
Than the Series 0 and Series 1, that there's a lot you can do on your watch. So if you're one of those people, maybe you buy $1,000 phone, but maybe you keep it for 2-3 years and you're
upgrade
able
your
to
watches.
Upgrade your watch. I actually want to go back to what we were talking about, the beta, that right when beta 4 hit, public beta 4, I decided I wanted to push my watch more to the limits. Boy, the wrong time.
Yeah, just the battery issue.
Yeah, right when the battery issue hits. So I guess I'll be waiting on, pushing my watch to its fullest potential.
You just got to be faster about it.
Yeah, get in and out of apps quicker and, speed up podcasts.
There you go. Yeah.
They're
just helping you push it to the limit.
Yeah. Anyways, this next story, I guess it's worth mentioning. And it'll probably be patched pretty soon, but Apple's AirDrop and Wi-Fi password sharing can potentially expose critical ID data. And I think it's a little hard to recreate, a lot of these vulnerabilities, but it can expose your phone number. So yeah, it says in here the only way to completely mitigate the threat of this is turning off Bluetooth.
Yeah. I mean,
altogether.
essentially what the article said though was that it's a targeted attack.
Yeah.
Like somebody has to zero in on you.
Yes.
And if you have your Bluetooth on and AirDrop, that they can maybe go and especially if you have AirDrop set to everyone, like I did yesterday.
Yeah, you mentioned that, right?
Yeah, I got a random photo of a dog and giving me a face.
Yeah, and luckily it was only a dog.
It was just a dog.
You know what I'm
just
saying?
A funny picture. Yeah. So I immediately changed it to contacts only. But the idea is that if you have all those things open, a hacker can target you, ping you, and when it hits your phone, they can pull a little bit of identifying data from it. So if you disable Bluetooth and you change your AirDrop settings to contacts only, that should mitigate a lot of the risk. The other thing I would recommend is to not piss off hackers. That'd be a good thing. Just, live your life and try not to obstruct anybody or make yourself a target. So
we like you, hackers.
Yeah. Please, we can stop with just dog photos. That'd be great.
Yeah, you got lucky.
I did.
I've heard horror stories. So.
I've also heard like some slick guy, just takes a picture of his phone number and like sends it. Like, hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It could be a meet cute. Well, I was on the subway and he just sent me his number through AirDrop. It was charming.
Yeah. Well, it'd be cool if he had a little photo of him like kind of.
Yeah, like, hey.
Yeah. Holding flowers.
Yeah, there you
something,
Romantic.
Yeah. Get creative with it.
The problem is then you don't realize that you're sending it to, like a Lindsay, but then it's actually a guy. Like, oh, well, okay. Hey.
Yeah, which is fine for some people.
That just might not have been your target.
Yeah, if it's not your target though. Yeah, that can.
Yeah, you got to watch for those names that can go either way. The Renees.
Oh man. So this is just a little tiny story, but since we do podcasts, Apple Podcasts adds new content categories for improved browsing. This is pretty cool. They could always use help in their podcast app, in my opinion. So they have a lot of categories here: true crime, comedy, sports, fiction, history, business, society and culture, kids and family, education, news, religion and spirituality, TV and movies, technology, arts, health and fitness, music, science, leisure, and government.
Government?
Yeah.
That one sounds super exciting.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a hard time getting to sleep, actually, that might keep you awake.
That's true.
What did they just say?
Yeah. Is it like political, or is it actually like, okay, so we're going to recap C-SPAN?
Oh man,
it could be great.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah.
True crime would be fun. Comedy. I could see some. This would be helpful finding new podcasts. So that'd be good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And later on when they start adding in other content, I'm sure there'll be a premium. And then
Yeah.
Speaking of the future, though, so there's this last article I found that potentially in 2020, the iPhone may be getting a new capability called time of flight camera. So here's what time of flight is. It's a catch-all term for a type of technology that measures the time it takes for something, be it a laser, light, liquid, gas particle, to travel a certain distance. So in this case, the camera sensor, specifically like an infrared laser array, is used to send out a laser pulse, which bounces off objects in front of it and reflects it back to the sensor. And then by calculating how long it takes the laser to travel to the object and back, you can calculate how far it is from the sensor, since the speed of light is a constant, yada, yada. technology. By knowing how far different objects are in a room, you can calculate a detailed 3D map of the room and all the objects in it. There's a lot of really cool applications for this. The first one that came to my mind was actually the Measure app that they have right now that uses AR and kind of, you drop a point and then you draw a line over to something, you drop another point. This one would actually be able to tell you, based off of the laser array, how far you are from something, and then can also detect distance and length by seeing how far in space that other point is. So we'll be getting a lot more accuracy on an application like that. There's really cool possibilities with AR, where if you are taking a picture or doing an AR and we're able to get that array out there, they should be able to reverse engineer that data to know, say you're shooting a doorway, right? To know where is the wall and where is open space. So then we can then cross-reference that data. And so now you have an AR experience where you can have an object float through the doorway and around the side and disappear. So there's some really cool applications that might be coming with that. There's also some things they could be doing with the camera in terms of portrait mode. So if I'm shooting you, I can now better mask out like the finer details like hair and things like that, so that those pieces come up and don't get blended into the background. Right now it's using algorithms and it's detecting, what is supposed to be in the foreground and what's in the background, and then it kind of blurs the background. But in this case, it can cross-reference that data and get really, really interesting, really, really detailed lines and pieces out of it. So
wow.
I'm hoping that gets rid of like that little blurry bloom that happens sometimes on portrait mode.
Yeah.
Because now we'll be able to actually know what part is supposed to be in foreground, what part is supposed to be in background.
Yeah, that would be cool because it already works pretty well, but sometimes you'll see these little patches.
Yeah, little spots.
Little spots where it didn't quite get it.
Yeah, it doesn't. Or if you do like a glass, it'll only get like half of a glass. It has a hard time differentiating background from that. But if the laser is able to bounce it back, then it should be able to build in that information. Could also be used in like mapping. If you have a room, and somebody could potentially use this depending on how big the array is, where you just you spin around in a circle and it does a full map of your room, and taking all of the furniture and everything else, and it just does a quick scan of it. So, I mean, who knows? Eventually, maybe somebody could write an app that uses the technology to also do like a 3D scanner.
Yeah.
So you just scan it with the back of your phone, and now you have a 3D model of a thing.
Man,
the future, man, it's here. This is really exciting.
That would be wild. Well, that's probably it for all of our news. Before we get to our picks, I just want to mention that we're going to include in the show notes from now on a little section called For Your Entertainment, because there always seems to be something, some kind of cool videos that are Apple related, but for us to sit and talk about it doesn't really do any justice.
It's not as entertaining as actually just watching it.
No, because we're an audio podcast. But just thought I'd throw it in there because they are really neat, and Apple's won an award. Well, they were nominated for Outstanding Commercial, an Emmy Award for 2 commercials called Behind the Mac, Make Something Wonderful, Don't Mess with Mother, shot on iPhone.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and I mean, if you haven't seen these, they really worth seeing. Like those 2 are really cool, really super cool.
When the ads they put out are good, it probably is a good indication that the content that they're going to be putting out is also really good.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah. They did we've had the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, so they kind of tied their they're going to have Snoopy on Apple TV Plus.
How cute.
So they put out a Snoopy in Space trailer. That was pretty cool. The 2019 iPhone Photography Award winners were announced. That's really neat, those photos. And then there's a new Behind the Mac video. Tells college students to test the impossible. So, in future episodes, we'll probably just mention what we've dropped in there maybe. But those will be in the show notes, and they're really worth checking out. I mean, I love watching that Don't Mess with Mother shot on iPhone. It's really cool if you haven't seen it.
I haven't. I'll check it out.
Yeah, and folks out there, check it out. But yeah, just something else to check out. All right, well, why don't we get to our picks?
Yeah, what you got?
What do I got? Something very exciting here. A grocery shopping list. It's called Our Grocery Shopping List.
You're wild, man.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Living on the edge, man. It's pretty cool, though. I've been using it for several years. It is a shared grocery list, so you can share it with your family, significant other, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. The key is to try to get them to participate. If you're listening out there, my fiance, try it. Yeah, she participates sometimes. At any rate, it's pretty cool. You can make, separate lists for different stores.
That's convenient.
Yeah. I've been making lists for years. Let me just explain. But they used to be on paper. And then you make the transition like, okay, my shopping list is on a piece of paper at home, or it's on the refrigerator, and it doesn't really work. So this is cool. You got it everywhere with you. It is an iPhone and Apple Watch app.
It's nice.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I do the free version. There's a paid version where you can scan items and add photos of, I don't know why you would need that, but to each his own.
I guess if you're particular about a thing, like, okay, the apples need to look like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also removes the ads. I don't really mind the ads. I kind of just don't even think about them. But you can set up different parameters to, you can just tap on an item to cross it off. You can go in and tweak that in settings to have different actions. You can sort your list, even lock orientation to vertical.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yes.
How is this different than the list app?
Which
the Apple list app?
Oh, like the notes?
Mm-hmm.
And making a list in
Yeah.
notes? To me,
is it the sub listing?
Yeah,
by store?
I like doing it this way. I know you can do that in Apple's Notes app.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can share notes, but you would have to have a separate note really for each store.
Yeah, that is true.
Otherwise it's going to get complicated because you can use Siri to add things to your notes. By the way, this one has Siri integration too. With everything else, Siri, if you don't say the exact correct phrase or it doesn't understand you, it's a little complicated, but you can say, add light bulbs to my Target list in Our Groceries. I think that's what you say to make it work. But you have to say in an exact, certain order to make it work correctly. But so if you do get the paid version, it supports the development of the app. It gets rid of ads. You can add photos. You can scan barcodes. That's kind of cool. And really, I've been using it for years. I feel like one day I should upgrade. It's only $5 and give them a little support, although they're getting revenue from ads. But and it works good on the Apple Watch.
The watch actually, I think, is really a big selling point on this now. Yeah,
if you look in the App Store for grocery apps on your watch, there's not a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And this one works well, really handy.
Well, one thing I've noticed is, so we do grocery lists through the list app on our phone, and we have a shared list, and so we can add things to it back and forth. Although it doesn't always sync, so there's a weird thing with that. But it is actually kind of a pain in the butt to have that list app open while you're walking around the grocery store, and then your phone goes to sleep, so you have to sign back in, you got to do the whole thing. Whereas if it was just on my wrist and the app stayed up, and I can just cross things off, that actually might be a lot more convenient. So cool.
It's pretty handy. I like it. I know it's not the most exciting app, but I like it because I use it all the time. I'm just kind of fanatical about these type of lists, myself, because when I use something here at home or wherever, I immediately open that app and put it back on the list. It remembers, the items you've put in there too.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's the other thing is, I've seen other apps where I'm not sure it's even saving the data. So, if you put in there organic apples, if that's something you buy regularly, well, when you go to add that item the next time after you've already crossed it off, it already has that information. Or if it's organic gala apples, it'll remember that information.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and you can get rid of that information too if you don't want it to remember that. But it's pretty handy. I don't really know what else I can say about a groceries list, but it's got everything you need. Sharing, yeah, works on the watch, which is important and super handy.
Well, you sold me. I'm gonna download it.
Yeah, you can't beat it for free.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
That's called what again?
It's Our Groceries Shopping List, right?
All right.
And we'll have, of course, a link in the show notes for that one. I probably won't use it on my Apple Watch for a little while. Don't want to drain the battery.
That's fair.
Well, yeah, maybe public beta 5.
Yeah,
I'll try it again. Anyways, why don't you tell us about your pick?
So my pick is also very exciting. It's called Life Cycle, and it's actually kind of an interesting app because what it does is it tracks yourself.
It's tracking me?
No, it's tracking me.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's an app that just tracks me. Everybody can get.
I'm glad you're not tracking
updates.
Me. It wouldn't be very exciting. Then this app would be very boring.
But what it does is you set it up on your phone and on your watch, and then it's tracking your location and aggregating a lot of the other data that it just kind of is collecting. So transportation, you can give it locations. You can set where locations are. So set a place as home, set a place as work, and then it'll track how long you're at those places, how long you're traveling. And it shows you an interesting they call it the donut, but it's basically just a bar graph and it shows you your time. And you can get a breakdown of your day, your week, your month, and your year, and kind of just see like how much time did I spend sleeping? How much time did I spend at home, traveling, working out, things like that. And when you look at it by the weekly, you can kind of get some breakdowns of information, and it'll say like, oh, you didn't work out as much as you did the week before, or you slept more this week, so that's great. So it's kind of interesting. What also is really fun too, though, is it won't actually give you information if it doesn't have it. So when I first downloaded the app, I was going to talk about it, but it needed over 24 hours to actually track my day. So it doesn't start working until you have the app. And then you would need to have at least a week in there before it'll give you a week breakdown. And you need the majority of a month to get that, and you need the majority of a year. So since I've only had the app for a couple of weeks, if I look at year, it still says it's collecting data, and it needs 149 more days before it can give me that information. I've had it for a month, so I have been able to get like a breakdown of July. And it gives you just interesting information. Like I went to 43 unique locations that month. Kind of shows you that. It says you were home more than usual, and you slept more, and you worked more. So I don't know how all those work, but
yeah, especially if you work from home.
Yeah, right. There you go.
I have a question too, because we have the graph here. The little fork and spoon, is that just eating out at restaurants or just eating?
So that was lunches.
Oh, that's lunches.
Yeah. And it says this was the first week you spent time on lunch for a total of 54 minutes. So I'm not sure how it found that information. I have to do a little bit more detail in it.
According to this, you're only eating lunch and not dinner and breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I need to give it a little bit more information about where I am and what's going on. But on this one, it says Wednesday, I spent 54 minutes on lunch. And I'm trying to think what I did on Wednesday of why it tracked that. But I think we went out to lunch. So it realized the location and saw that and then came back. So I need to give it more locations and specify them a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it'll start getting more and more detailed in it. Because there's some things that's just like question mark. I have no idea what you were doing during this time. Or the location you were at. And so you can go in and tell it the location, and you can tell it an activity, and then it'll start giving you more of a breakdown. But at its very basic core, knowing travel time, how long you've been at home, and then I'm not sure how it's figuring out sleep. I think it's when you're charging your device.
Oh, okay.
It knows how long you've been doing that for, and so it specifies it as sleep. But it just gives you kind of interesting information around that.
Yeah, and I notice here there's no shower time. Is there a reason you're not showering?
Yeah.
What did we stop showering?
Yeah. Well, I think it's part of that question mark rolled in. I've actually been showering and eating lunch at the same time to save time, so that's probably why it's just a little confused about that.
Yeah, and since you only have time to eat lunch, but not dinner and breakfast.
I'm very busy sleeping and just being at home. What was helpful for me, though, is so I'm salary based in my job, and it showed that I've actually been spending more than 8 hours at work. And so, but I can also see, like, last week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was at work for over 8 hours, but then Monday and Wednesday I was below a little bit. But I actually had Friday off, and so it still said I spent 37 hours in the office, which so overall I am working more. So it kind of helps with some of that work-life balance as well. There's an interesting thing too, where I give it permission to pull in photos. And so now if I'm looking at my work slice from last week, it also pulls in some pictures that I took from work. So we had a little celebration for a coworker winning an award, and I was trying out another little AR experience thing that I took a picture of. So those pictures come up there too. So it's kind of cool too, to help just kind of build a little bit of it's like a diary, personal thing, right? Yeah. Facebook is very social and it's out there. This is more for yourself and just kind of figuring out how that works. So.
Did it get the dog photo that was sent to you?
It didn't get the dog photo. I don't know what happened to that picture. It like self-destructed. I was trying to find it again because it was really funny.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so if I look at home, I think there's some more other detailed information in there too. And like we went to the Queen Mary the week before. And so, it knows how long we were there, and just really kind of interesting breakdowns. It gives you little insights into yourself. You can glean the insights just based off the data. It doesn't try to really predict too many things. Just a read back of what you've been doing. So
yeah, so it's essentially its goal is just to kind of see where you're spending your time. Kind of a work-life balance.
Yeah, it
activity
also helps with it too. Yeah. So if I look at my last week exercise, it says I walked 54,000 steps, which means an average of 7,779 steps per day, which is a 20% increase from my usual average, which is good. And that I ran 3 times that week, which I didn't intend to run, but I think it was just tracking some of my swifter movements as a run. So, but it also tracks like my bike rides. It did an interesting thing where it was talking, it said that I didn't drive as often. Transport, yeah. You spend more time than usual on this event. So actually my driving was up. But that was also because we were driving around on the weekend. So there's some interesting, little data points you can kind of glean from that as well. So Life Cycle, there's an app for the watch as well that just kind of gives you a breakdown of your day. So while you're doing it, you can kind of get an idea, and then the actual phone app allows you to get more detailed information.
Is there a complication for the Apple Watch?
I don't actually remember. I think there is. Let me see.
I don't know. If that's something people would want to.
Yeah, you can see your
regularly, but
I'd have to get back to you. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't believe there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check it out. It's called Life Cycle. Get information about yourself. It does not look like there is a complication, but really, it's more something that's going around in the background. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's it for this episode of the Apple Watchers. Read all the stories we've covered and more stories on Flipboard, a link provided in the show notes. Reach out to us on Twitter @WatchersTweet if you have any suggestions or stories you'd like us to cover. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can even ask your smart speaker to play the Apple Watchers podcast. Please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen. And thank you so much for listening. Until the next episode, I hope the only complications in your life are the ones on the face of your Apple Watch.